Hi there. Throughout history, no empire has lived forever. Rome, the Ottomans, the Persians, the Mongols, the Soviets, all were once the center of the world, and all eventually fell. But why? Is there a universal rule behind imperial collapse, or does each empire crumble under its own unique conditions? Today, we explore two of the most influential thinkers on this question, Joseph Tainter and Immanuel Wallerstein. According to them, empires collapse for two very different reasons. For Tainter, it's from within. For Wallerstein, it is from the global system outside. In this video, we compare their theories, analyze historical cases, and examine what their ideas mean for today's great powers. Let's begin. The collapse of empires is far more complex than it looks, because empires rarely fall for a single reason. Uh, for instance, economic decline, population pressure, civil war, or climate shocks, technological stagnation, maybe ideological erosion. But they accumulate, they interact, they form some kind of chain, and this is where Joseph Tainter steps in. Um, Joseph Tainter makes a bold claim. As societies become more complex, the cost of maintaining that complexity increases, and eventually the system becomes unsustainable. So, what does he mean by complexity? Uh, as an empire grows, it develops it develops bigger bureaucracies, large armies, more advanced infrastructure, and more specialized institutions, and also more layers of administration. At first, this complexity helps solve problems, but over time, the benefits decline while the costs keep rising. And this is Tainter's idea of diminishing returns on complexity. And Rome as the perfect example. The Roman Empire illustrates this perfectly. Borders expanded, armies grow, and taxation increased, and bureaucracy ballooned, and on infrastructure demanded constant maintenance. And eventually, the empire could no longer afford itself. Uh, Rome didn't fall because it was weak. It fell because it became too expensive to manage. Um, Now, let's turn to Immanuel Wallerstein. His approach is completely different. He argues empires rise and fall because the world economy changes, uh, not because they decay internally. Wallerstein's world systems theory uh, divides states into uh, core, semi-periphery, and periphery. Core states control technology, capital, and high value production. And peripheral states supply raw materials, and semi-peripheral states sit in between. To become an empire, a state must move into the core, but the global economy uh, is dynamic. Technology shifts, capital relocates, new competitors emerge, and old core states lose their advantage. Britain as the classic case in the 19th century. Britain dominated world economy, but eventually uh, industry shifted to the United States. Germany rose. Colonial administration became costly, and capital moved across the Atlantic, and then Britain entered its hegemonic decline. For Wallerstein, this is not a failure; it's a cycle, a predictable rotation of global leadership. Um, and let's compare both theories, both approaches. For Tainter, collapse equals internal limits. Collapse equals economic overload. Collapse equals the system becomes too costly. And maybe collapse equals a simplification process. For Wallerstein, collapse equals external pressure, even systemic competition, and maybe it equals to the global core, the global core shifts, and maybe it equals loss of structural advantage. They do not contradict each other. They describe different layers of the same phenomenon. And one is internal, and the other one is global. And one looks inside the empire, the other one examines its position in the world system. Let's apply both theories to history. For instance, for the Rome, Tainter's domain, Rome's economy couldn't sustain its administrative and military burdens. It collapsed under internal cost pressure. But for Wallerstein's framework, we cannot apply that understanding well to ancient pre-capitalist systems. So here, in Rome's case, Tainter explains better. When it comes to the Ottoman Empire as a case, it is an hybrid case because rising administrative costs was an issue, and that makes Tainter much more right for that kind of part. And tax revenues declined. Again, it makes Tainter right again. And also, Europe's industrial rise is another case, and that makes Wallerstein right. And the empire becoming peripheralized, and then Ottoman decline happened. That's why we may explain the collapse of Ottoman Empire through both perspectives. Another case might be the British Empire. It is a classic example of Wallerstein's, actually, and his argumentation fits here perfectly. Britain lost its hegemonic core position since the US industrialized. Germany accelerated. Capital and technology shifted. Colonies became expensive liabilities, and that's why classic hegemonic decline happened. But when it comes to the Soviet Union, again, dual failure. The USSR experienced both internal economic exhaustion, which Tainter's perspective, and also failure to compete within the global capitalist system, which is Wallerstein's argument. So it is the USSR is the perfect intersection of the two theories. Now the most important question: where do today's great powers stand? Uh, for the United States, and of an hegemonic cycle from Wallerstein's perspective, uh, production shifted to Asia, technology competition intensified, expensive wars eroded power, and global legitimacy weakened the US is in late hegemonic decline. Um, from Tainter's perspective, bureaucracy is massive. Uh, Defense costs are enormous, and infrastructure is aging, and also political gridlock increases systemic inefficiency. So the US faces both internal and external pressures. Another example might be China. China is rising, but at a cost. According to Wallerstein, China is climbing toward the core, a candidate for the next hegemon. For Tainter, China's internal costs are rising rapidly. Aging population, debt-burdened local governments, and declining economic efficiency, and also high administrative and surveillance cost. These are the facts. China is a rising power with growing structural burdens for Tainter. When it comes to Russia, uh, structural contraction is the fact for Russia right now. It is no longer a core state. According to Wallerstein, it sits in the semi-periphery, struggling to move upward, but cannot be successful right now. For Tainter, its system suffers from high military costs, low productivity, and a limited economic base. Of course, Russia is not collapsing, but its structural constraints are tightening. That is the main reason, main fact. Why do empires fall? As an answer, Tainter says they collapse because they become too costly, and Wallerstein says they collapse because the global system shifts. And the truth is, empires collapse when internal weaknesses and external pressures interact and reinforce one another. No empire falls for one reason. They fall because costs rise, competition intensifies, legitimacy weakens, systems crack from both sides, and eventually the weight becomes too heavy. So, what do you think? Will the next great imperial decline of the 21st century come from Tainter's internal cost overload, or Wallerstein's global systemic shifts?